In the vast tapestry of the cosmos, where 1,000 species traded, warred, and prospered among the stars, humanity had always been a footnote. A curious anomaly that crawled from its primitive homeworld to stake a minor claim among the galactic powers. The great empires of Delcar and Vanak, locked in their eternal struggle for dominance, barely registered the presence of these newcomers. To them, humans were merely another species to exploit, another set of colonies to draw resources from when needed. The Galactic Council, that ancient institution meant to maintain order among the stars, had grown complacent and toothless over millennia. Representatives met in their crystalline halls, debating endlessly while real power lay with those who controlled the trade routes and mining rights. The council's neutrality had become indifference, their justice reduced to mere words that carried no weight in the vacuum of space. As tensions escalated between Delcar and Vanak over contested star systems, the conflicts spilled into the neutral zones. Skirmishes became battles, and battles threatened to consume entire sectors. The Council issued condemnations and called for restraint, but the warships of both empires continued their deadly dance across the stars. It was in this context that a human civilian convoy found itself caught between the grinding gears of galactic politics. 7 merchant vessels carrying colonists to a newly established human settlement in the Rimward territories encountered Delcar patrol ships at the edge of the Rin neutral zone. Before they could engage their jump drives to flee, Vanak warships dropped out of hyperspace, weapons hot and ready for combat. The human ships, unarmed and slow, sent desperate pleas for protection that went unanswered. The Delcar ships opened fire first, seeing the civilian convoy as potential support for their enemies. The Vanak forces responded in kind, and within minutes, 7 human vessels were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated gas and twisted metal. Thousands of lives snuffed out in crossfire that neither empire would later acknowledge. Marshal Raven Carter stood before the holographic display in the secret facility beneath Mars, watching the aftermath reports with eyes that held decades of suppressed rage. The images of burning wreckage, the intercepted distress calls, the final moments of families who had sought nothing but a better life among the stars, all of it fed a fire that had been kindling since humanity first reached beyond Earth's atmosphere. They didn't even slow down, whispered Colonel Helena Stokes, Carter's second-in-command. Her own family had been among those early human colonists who disappeared when their worlds were strip-mined by Delcar automated harvesters. The Council sent its condolences. Condolences. Carter's hand tightened on the edge of the command station. Around them, technicians and engineers continued their work on Project JÖRMUNGANDR, humanity's response to a galaxy that saw them as expendable. For 20 years, Earth's brightest minds had labored in secret, studying recovered alien technology, pushing the boundaries of human science, and nurturing a weapon that would ensure respect through fear. "Sir," a young officer approached, "we've received confirmation." The Council's response was filed under regrettable incident. No investigation, no sanctions against either empire. The silence that followed was profound. Every human in the facility understood what those words meant, that their species' survival depended not on diplomacy or alliances, but on the dark ship taking shape in the underground docks. The JÖRMUNGANDR emerged from its hidden berth 3 weeks after the massacre. At first, it registered as nothing more than a navigation anomaly on long-range sensors, a disturbance in the fabric of space-time that defied proper classification. By the time the great powers noticed, it was already among them. The ship itself was a nightmare of form and function, shaped like an ancient sea serpent caught mid-strike. Its hull absorbed light rather than reflecting it, making it appear as a void against the stars. Technologies that human scientists barely understood hummed beneath its skin. Quantum field generators, probability matrices, and weapons systems that bent the laws of physics to their will. Admiral Varric of the Delcar Dominion first encountered the ship during a routine patrol of their frontier worlds. The ancient warrior, veteran of countless battles against Vanak forces, prided himself on recognizing every vessel type in known space. But this shadow that materialized at the edge of sensor range defied all classification. Scan that anomaly, he ordered, his forearms tensing at his control station. Full spectrum analysis. The sensor officer's report came back with readings that made no sense. Mass readings fluctuate between 0 and infinite, sir. Energy signatures don't match any known propulsion systems. Before Varric could respond, the anomaly moved. In a fraction of a heartbeat, it crossed the distance between them, positioning itself directly above the Delcar battlecruiser. The Admiral's crew tensed for attack, but none came. Instead, a message broadcast on all frequencies in perfect Delcar standard. Your actions at the Ren have consequences. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the shadow vanished, leaving only the lingering chill of an implied threat. General K.C.H. Rath of the Vanak Empire received similar reports from his own scouts. The bioengineered warrior, bred for combat and honed by centuries of military conditioning, dismissed the encounters as sensor ghosts or psychological warfare tactics. Yet when the reports continued, each more detailed than the last, even he could not ignore the pattern emerging. The Jormungandr was hunting. Its first true strike came at Delta Station, a Delcar mining facility orbiting a gas giant in the outer territories. The station's defenses, designed to repel Vanak raiders and asteroid impacts, activated automatically as the dark ship approached. Point defense guns swiveled, shield generators hummed to life, and the facility's commander initiated emergency protocols. None of it mattered. The Jormungandr didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, reality itself seemed to warp around the station. Space folded and twisted, creating localized gravitational anomalies that stressed the structure beyond its limits. Metal screamed and buckled as the laws of physics became suggestions rather than rules. In less than 5 minutes, a facility that had stood for decades became a slowly expanding debris field. The attack was recorded by automated deep space beacons. The footage, when it reached Delcar High Command, showed something impossible. A ship that moved through dimensions of space that shouldn't exist, that commanded forces beyond current understanding. Prepare the Armada, Admiral Varric commanded, his pride wounded by the violation of Delcar territory. We will hunt this specter down and destroy it. Similar orders echoed through Vanak military channels. General K.C.H. Rath, seeing an opportunity to prove his empire's strength, proposed an unprecedented action to his High Council. The humans have sent a lone ship against us. Let us show them, and the galaxy, what happens when powers greater than them unite. For the first time in living memory, Delcar and Vanak forces maneuvered toward cooperation. The irony was not lost on their respective populations. The very conflict that had triggered humanity's wrath now forced their tormentors into alliance. The rendezvous point was chosen carefully. The Tharen Gate, a natural choke point formed by intersecting gravity wells and asteroid fields. Here, where so many human lives have been lost, both empires would join forces to face their newfound threat. Aboard the Jormungandr, Marshal Carter studied the intelligence reports with grim satisfaction. The enemy was gathering exactly as predicted. Every tactical simulation, every psychological profile developed by Earth's analysts had pointed to this moment. They've taken the bait, Helena Stokes reported, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. Combined fleet strength estimated at 400 vessels. Battleships, carriers, support craft, they're not holding anything back. Carter nodded slowly. Good. When predators unite, they reveal their true nature. Prepare the Midas field. It's time they learned what humanity learned, that desperation breeds innovation. The concept behind Midas, multidimensional interference detection and suppression, was theoretically impossible according to current galactic science. It allowed the Jormungandr to observe the unfolded dimensions of space-time, to predict the movement of objects before they arrived at their destination. Combined with their space-folding weapons, it made the ship capable of striking enemies before they could even detect the attack. As the Jormungandr approached the Tharen Gate, Alarms began screaming throughout the combined Delcar-Vanak fleet. Long-range sensors picked up the characteristic distortion signature of the mysterious vessel. This time, however, they were prepared. All ships formed defensive sphere Alpha 9, Admiral Varric transmitted. Overlapping shields, rotating firing arcs. Whatever technology they possess, they cannot stand against the combined might of our empires. General KCH Rath's bioengineered reflexes allowed him to process tactical data faster than most electronic systems. He watched the battle unfold with predatory anticipation. Target their approach vector. Saturate that entire sector with graviton torpedoes. The void erupted with apocalyptic fury. Hundreds of ships fired simultaneously, filling space with deadly energy beams, exotic missiles, and reality-warping weapons that both empires had hoarded for this very purpose. The concentration of firepower would have vaporized entire planets. Yet the Jormungandr moved through the maelstrom like a dancer, its path predetermined by Midas field calculations. Where it passed, space itself rippled with its wake. The first victims were the Delcar battleships that had concentrated their fire in the ship's predicted path. Instead of intercepting their target, they found themselves caught in localized gravity wells that crushed their hulls like paper. Impossible! Varric roared as his tactical displays went dark. They're bending space around projectiles, creating stable wormholes to redirect our attacks. But the horror was only beginning. The Jormungandr's primary weapons, carefully developed from recovered fragments of an ancient civilization's technology, operated on principles that made current physics obsolete. The ship fired coherent streams of collapsed space-time, creating temporary regions where the universal constants were no longer constant. Vanak warships, bred for resilience and redundancy, found their bioneural systems failing as the fundamental forces holding atomic nuclei together shifted slightly. Reactors went critical as the electromagnetic force weakened. Structural fields collapsed as the strong nuclear force fluctuated. Within the bridge of the Jormungandr, the crew watched with cold efficiency as their targeting systems acquired new victims. The holographic display showed the battle in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The physical positions of enemy ships, their quantum states, and the probability matrices that predicted their movements. Impact assessment, Carter asked, his voice steady despite the magnitude of destruction unfolding around them. 37% of enemy forces eliminated, Helena replied. Their formation is breaking apart. Some ships attempting to flee. Carter's expression remained impassive. Plot intercept courses. None leave until the lesson is complete. The next phase of the battle pushed beyond conventional warfare into something approaching cosmic horror. Jormungandr's weapons created localized regions where time flowed differently, trapping ships in slow-motion destruction that lasted for perceived eternities. Relativistic harpoons stretched space-time, impaling ships with strands of reality itself. Admiral Varric, his vessel's systems failing around him, made his final transmission. To all ships, retreat. Whatever the humans have become, we cannot dash. His words were cut off as a fold-space torpedo, emerging from dimensions perpendicular to normal space, detonated at the precise center of his command bridge. The matter-energy conversion was total and instantaneous. General KCH Rath, witnessing the annihilation of his allies, struggled with a concept foreign to his warrior-bred mind: defeat. His empire had engineered him to know no fear, to fight until victory or glorious death. But what faced him now was neither victory nor glorious death. It was systematic extermination. KCH Rath to command, he transmitted on emergency frequencies. The humans? They've transcended conventional warfare. We need immediate dash. The general's transmission ended not with violence, but with silence. His ship, along with 70 others, simply ceased to exist as the Jormungandr's ultimate weapon fired. The Uroboretic cannon collapsed the space-time coordinates occupied by enemy vessels into singularities, then immediately reversed the process, scattering their matter across multiple dimensions. In mere minutes, the combined might of Delcar and Vanak, fleets that had terrorized multiple species, conquered worlds, and shaped galactic politics through force, was reduced to cosmic debris and radiation. Aboard the Jormungandr, the crew maintained professional composure, but Helena noticed the slight tremor in her hands as she reviewed casualty estimates. "Sir, preliminary analysis suggests near total enemy losses. Their command structure is completely destroyed." Carter gazed at the tactical display, where enemy icons blinked out one by one. For a moment, the weight of what they had accomplished threatened to break through his resolve. Then he remembered the burning ships of human colonists, the indifference of the Galactic Council, the casual acceptance of human casualties as acceptable collateral damage. Status of remaining vessels? Scattered retreats to multiple systems. No organized resistance capability remaining. Then we follow every world that supported their actions against our people. Every resource depot that fueled their wars. Every shipyard that built machines of conquest. We continue until they understand. The galaxy's communication networks, already strained by war, now carried a different kind of traffic. Fear, whispers, warnings. From the crowded worlds of the core systems to the lonely outposts at the galactic rim, the same story spread. Humanity had changed. They were no longer victims to be pitted or ignored. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, their crystalline chambers buzzing with heated debate. Ambassador Threx of the Confederation attempted to call for order as dozens of species demanded answers, protection, intervention. "The human attack must be condemned," declared the Karani ambassador, their tentacles writhing with agitation. "This level of destruction violates all established protocols of warfare. Protocols they created when they possessed superior technology," noted a cynical observer from the viewing galleries. Perhaps they should have considered such constraints when human civilians were caught in their crossfire. The debate continued for hours, but beneath the diplomatic rhetoric, a new reality was crystallizing. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted irreversibly. Every species that had ever considered humans as limited threats now reconsidered their position. In the aftermath of the Varin Gate massacre, communications experts across the galaxy detected something unprecedented: silence from humanity's public channels. No boasts, no declarations of victory, no demands for surrender. Just the continued, methodical movement of a single ship that had rewritten the rules of warfare. On Delcar Prime, the surviving members of the High Command gathered in emergency session. Their capital world, far from any immediate threat, nonetheless resonated with the shock waves of their empire's shattering defeat. "We must sue for peace," urged Minister Calix, his usual bluster replaced by caution, "before they bring their monster to our core worlds." "Peace with apes," spat War Master Dreth, though his defiance rang hollow. "After they've destroyed our fleets? They won't be content with surrender. They want extinction." The debate was interrupted by the appearance of Jormungandr on the edge of the Delcar system. It lingered there, just outside the reach of their planetary defense networks, a dark omen against the stars. Communications channels crackled with an incoming transmission. Marshal Carter's face appeared on screens across the planet, humanity's rage given form and voice. "Citizens of Delcar, your empire participated in the massacre of unarmed human civilians. Your military leadership chose indifference when they could have chosen mercy. Today, you face the consequences of those choices. You have 48 hours to discuss terms of surrender. At the end of that time, we will discuss justice." The transmission ended, leaving billions to contemplate their mortality. In the ensuing panic, Delcar's military command debated desperate measures while citizens prepared for either negotiation or annihilation. On the bridge of the Jormungandr, Helena approached Carter with visible apprehension. "Sir, if we destroy their homeworld, if we render their species extinct, what will that make us?" Carter stared into the tactical display, watching the blue-green world of Delcar Prime rotate serenely below. "It will make us survivors, Colonel. The galaxy has taught us that predators respect only strength. We've become apex predators because the alternative was extinction. But at what cost? The colonists we seek to avenge, would they have wanted this level of retaliation? What they wanted is irrelevant. They're dead because others deemed human lives expendable. We ensure that mistake is never repeated. The Galactic Council's emergency diplomatic mission arrived at the Delcar system as the deadline approached. Ambassador Threx, chosen for their reputation as the galaxy's most skilled negotiator, transmitted a proposal for mediation. Esteemed representatives of humanity, Threx began, their multifaceted voice carrying across space. The Council offers to arbitrate a peaceful resolution to this conflict. Reparations, territory, oversight of military limitations, all can be discussed. War need not continue. Carter's response came swift and cold. The Council had its chance for justice when our civilians died. There will be no arbitration. There will be acknowledgement of responsibility and concrete guarantees. Or there will be consequences. As the deadline expired, JÖRMUNGANDR positioned itself in high orbit above Delcar Prime. The ship's weapons, aimed at the planet's surface, generated energy readings that sent waves of terror through the population below. Yet instead of firing, Carter initiated another transmission. You have chosen to acknowledge your role in the Rin incident. You have agreed to full demilitarization and oversight. Your empire will pay restitution to human colonial authorities for the next century. Your surviving military officers will stand trial for war crimes. These terms are non-negotiable. Deviation from any clause will result in immediate consequences. Relief and humiliation mixed in equal measure on Delcar Prime. They had avoided annihilation, but at the cost of everything that made their empire what it was. Their vast military machine would be dismantled, their proud warrior culture neutered by external oversight. The Vanak Empire, having suffered similar destruction of their military forces, faced the same stark choice. Their response, however, carried the defiance of a species literally bred for combat. The Vanaks submit to no one, transmitted Supreme Commander Vrax from their reinforced capital bunker. We are warriors. Death before dishonor. Then death it is, Carter replied, his voice carrying the weight of inevitability. The assault on Vanak Prime demonstrated yet another aspect of JÖRMUNGANDR's terrible capabilities. Rather than quick destruction, the ship employed precise strikes that dismantled the planet's infrastructure systematically. Power grids failed. Communication networks went dark. Orbital defense platforms were disabled rather than destroyed, their crews alive to witness their helplessness. For 7 days, Carter reduced Vanak civilization to its component parts. Each attack perfectly calculated to demonstrate humanity's total control over their fate. The warrior species, bred to know no fear, discovered a primal terror in their own powerlessness. On the 8th day, as atmosphere processors began failing and the population faced environmental collapse, the Supreme Commander capitulated. We submit. End your assault. The galaxy watched as two of its most powerful empires, forces that had terrorized species across multiple sectors, accepted terms that reduced them to shadows of their former might. The lesson was unmistakable. Humanity had evolved beyond victim status. They had become something the Galactic Order had never anticipated, a species whose capacity for systematic violence matched their former vulnerability. In the months that followed, other species approached humanity with overtures of alliance, trade agreements, and desperate attempts to avoid the fate of Delcar and Vanak. The Karani offer exclusive mining rights. The Threxian hegemony proposed joint research projects, each approached with a mixture of respect and carefully concealed terror. Earth, no longer the ignored corner of human space, became a destination for diplomatic missions from across the galaxy. Ships bearing ambassadors, intelligence officers disguised as cultural emissaries, and scientists curious about humanity's technological leap arrived daily. But the true face of new humanity was not found on Earth or in the gleaming spires of the colonial capitals. It cruised the space lanes aboard the JÖRMUNGANDR, a dark reminder of what happened when the peaceful were pushed too far. Helena found Carter in his quarters one cycle, reviewing reports from the trials of Delcar and Vanak officers. The evidence was overwhelming. Orders given that deliberately targeted human ships, emergency protocols ignored that could have saved lives, calculated decisions that valued expedience over compassion. "We got justice," she observed, though something in her tone suggested the word fell hollow. "Did we?" Carter asked without looking up. "Justice would have been our people living their lives. This is what happens when justice becomes impossible. We got necessity. Will it be enough? For our survivors? For our dead?" Carter set aside the reports and finally met her eyes. "It has to be, because the alternative, returning to who we were before, vulnerable to the whims of powers that don't see us as equals, that's unacceptable. We've paid in blood to reshape how the galaxy sees humanity. The price was high, but the alternative was extinction." As the Jormungandr continued its patrols, ensuring compliance with the treaties imposed on former enemies, the galaxy adapted to its new reality. Trade routes shifted to accommodate human interests. Conflicts that might once have spilled over into human space were carefully contained. The Galactic Council, forced to acknowledge humanity's martial capabilities, began treating human representatives with genuine respect rather than condescending tolerance. Yet beneath the surface of this new order, questions persisted. What happened when the next conflict arose? How long before other species developed countermeasures to humanity's advanced technology? Could sustained peace exist in a relationship built on demonstrated capacity for overwhelming violence? Years passed, and humanity's colonial expansion accelerated. What had been measured in individual settlements now proceeded by sectors. Human technology, both the innovations that created the Jormungandr and the conventional advances made possible by shared galactic knowledge, pushed at the boundaries of what was thought possible. Carter, now elevated to Supreme Commander of Human Space Forces, maintained his vigil aboard the Jormungandr. The ship had become less a weapon and more a symbol, a dark promise to all who might threaten humanity again. Helena, promoted to admiral and given command of humanity's growing fleet, sometimes visited the ship that had changed everything. On one such visit, she found Carter staring at the tactical display, running endless permutations of potential future conflicts. "We've built our security on fear," she observed. "We build it on respect," Carter corrected. "Fear was just the admission price. And if that respect fades? If new generations forget why we were feared, then we remind them. But the galaxy has adapted. They see us as peers now. Their children grow up knowing humanity as a force to be reckoned with, not victims to be exploited. That's worth whatever doubts we carry." The passage of time brought new generations to power across the galaxy. Species that had witnessed Jormungandr's attacks taught their offspring about the importance of respecting all species' claims to sovereignty. The phrase "the human silence" entered galactic vocabulary as a warning against complacency, a reminder that civilizations could evolve beyond their apparent limitations. In the archives of the Galactic Council, the records of the Darin incident remained, labeled now with new annotations: Catalyst Event, Human Strategic Evolution. Warning: insufficient response to civilian casualties may result in disproportionate retaliation. Reference: Delcar-Vanak conflicts, subsequent treaties. From their homeworlds to the furthest colonies, humans maintained their new standing in galactic society. Ships bearing the Serpent in Space design that had become humanity's unofficial symbol traveled peacefully through space lanes that once excluded them. Humans served alongside former enemies on multi-species crews, worked on collaborative scientific projects, traded in markets that set fair prices rather than exploitative ones. Yet humanity never forgot the lesson carved into space-time by the Jormungandr's weapons. The ship itself was preserved, not as a museum piece, but as a working vessel of the fleet. Each generation of human spacers was trained in its operation. Scholars studied its underlying technologies, and diplomats understood it as their ultimate backstop in negotiations. The galaxy, too, remembered. When conflicts arose, as they inevitably did in a complex community of different species with competing interests, the memory of that lone human ship silencing two empires served as a moderating influence. Species considered their actions more carefully, sought diplomatic solutions more readily, and acknowledged the sovereignty of others with greater sincerity. In the end, the galaxy fell silent not in fear, but in understanding. The silence carried the weight of respect earned through demonstration of capability, tempered by the restraint shown in its application. Humanity had written itself into galactic history not as victims, not as conquerors, but as a species that would no longer be ignored or disregarded. And always, out among the stars, the Jormungandr watched and waited, a dark guardian of human interests and a reminder that in the vast ocean of space, some serpents bite back. The galaxy had learned to listen to that silence. It had learned to look beyond appearances and recognize potential where it had once seen only limitation. Most importantly, it had learned that compassion, when absent too long, births consequences that reshape the very fabric of civilization. Years turned to decades, and the space where human civilian ships had burned became a navigational landmark, marked on stellar maps as Remorse Field. Species passing through that region observe a moment of silence, taught their young about the importance of protecting the vulnerable, and contemplated how a single act of indifference had rewritten the balance of power in their galaxy. The great wheel of cosmic time continued its rotation, but the galaxy would never again fall silent for the same reasons. The pause now carried meaning, respect, and the hard-won understanding that every species deserved to be seen, heard, and protected in the vast expanse of space. In watching over it all, Jormungandr maintained its eternal vigil, ensuring that the silence would never again be broken by the sound of innocent lives being lost to indifference. In the quiet of space, where light traveled for eons and civilizations rose and fell like tides, humanity had finally found its voice. And the galaxy, at last, had learned to listen,